The first time I saw my daughter again, she was smiling on a television screen in a crowded hospital waiting room 23 years after I buried her. At first I thought grief had finally broken my mind. The sound around me faded, the nurses at the desk became distant shadows. Even the coffee cup in my hand slipped and shattered across the floor. But I barely noticed because on that screen, on a morning news interview playing silently above the chairs, was the face I had spent half my life trying to forget. Same dark eyes, same tiny scar above the eyebrow, same nervous habit of rubbing her thumb against her palm. Emily, my daughter, the daughter I lowered into the ground myself in October of 2003. And the worst part, she hadn't aged the way a dead person should in memories. She looked real, alive, older, human, not a ghost, not imagination, alive. A nurse touched my shoulder carefully. Sir, are you all right? I couldn't answer because beneath the woman's face on the screen were the words "local architect. Donates millions to Children's Hospital." The name below it wasn't Emily Harper, it was Caroline Ward. But I knew that face. A father never forgets his child, especially not after identifying her body, especially not after hearing her scream the night she disappeared, and especially not after spending 23 years believing her death was his fault. Emily was 8 years old the night she vanished. It was raining so hard the roads outside town looked like rivers. My wife had already gone to bed after another argument about my drinking, and Emily sat beside me on the couch wearing dinosaur pajamas, drawing pictures, while some old game show flickered across the TV. Dad, if I disappeared one day, would you come find me? I laughed softly. That's a strange question, she shrugged without looking up from her crayons. Just wondering. I remember that moment constantly now, every detail, every sound, because 30 minutes later, she was gone. The back door stood open, rain poured inside the kitchen, and the only thing left behind was one tiny pink shoe lying near the woods behind our house. Police searched for weeks, then months. Divers dragged the lake, volunteers covered the forests, dogs tracked her scent to the highway before losing it completely. The entire town slowly stopped saying her name after the first year. But I never stopped hearing it. 3 years later, they found remains in a shallow grave 40 miles away. The police said the clothing matched, the age matched, the timing matched. The body had decomposed too badly for certainty, but they told us it was enough for a funeral, enough for a death certificate, enough for everyone to move on. Except me. My wife collapsed after the burial and never truly recovered. She died from a stroke 6 years later, carrying guilt and grief like stones inside her chest. And I spent the next decade drinking myself toward the grave beside them, until that hospital television changed everything. The interview replayed in my mind all night. I barely slept the next morning. I drove 2 hours to the city station that aired the segment. My hands shook so badly I nearly crashed twice. The receptionist looked uncomfortable as I explained myself. You think the woman on television is your dead daughter? When she said it out loud, I sounded insane even to myself. But then she asked me to wait. 10 minutes later, she returned holding a business card. Her assistant said she might speak with you briefly. I stared at the name Caroline Ward. The address led to a massive glass office building overlooking the river downtown. Everything about it screamed wealth and success, the kind of life my Emily never got the chance to live. A young assistant escorted me upstairs, and then the office door opened. The woman stepped inside. The moment our eyes met, the air left my lungs. Recognition flashed across her face. Instantly, not confusion, recognition. She knew me. But instead of emotion, fear spread across her expression. Leave, she whispered. My heart stopped. Emily, my name is Caroline Ure. My daughter, know her. Voice cracked sharply. You need to leave right now then. I noticed something strange. Her hands were trembling, not with anger, with terror. As if someone dangerous might hear us talking, I stepped closer, carefully. Emily. I buried you. Tears filled her eyes instantly. For one horrifying second, I thought she might finally embrace me. Instead, she whispered, "If you love me, never come back here again." Then she walked out. That should have been enough. Maybe a sane man would have accepted it. But parents don't bury questions with their children. I started digging. The old detective on Emily's case had retired 15 years earlier. I found him living alone near the coast. He looked uncomfortable the second I mentioned her name. Some things are better left buried. He muttered. I saw her alive. The color drained from his face. That terrified me more than anything else. Because it wasn't disbelief. It was guilt. 3 hours later, after enough whiskey, he finally confessed something that changed my entire understanding of the past. The remains they buried, they were never conclusively identified. The pressure on the department had become enormous. The town wanted closure, politicians wanted headlines, everyone wanted the case finished. So they closed it even with doubts. But why would she disappear? I asked. The old detective stared silently at the ocean for a long time before answering. She didn't disappear then. What happened? He looked me directly in the eyes. Your daughter was taken. A coldness spread through my entire body. By who I don't know, but 2 weeks before. She vanished. Another little girl disappeared 80 miles north. My stomach tightened. She reappeared 11 years later under a different name. Suddenly, I couldn't breathe. You think Emily was trafficked? I think someone took vulnerable children and rebuilt their identities. The room spun around me. Because for 23 years I had blamed myself for not protecting her. But now a darker possibility emerged. Maybe Emily hadn't died as a child. Maybe she survived something worse. 3 nights later, someone broke into my house. Nothing was stolen, nothing touched, except one thing. The framed photograph of Emily from second grade had disappeared from my living room wall. And beneath the empty frame sat a note. Stop looking. That was the first moment I truly became afraid, not of ghosts, not of grief, of the living. I went to the police. But they treated me like a grieving old man losing touch with reality. Until the next morning, when Caroline Ward vanished from public view, completely. Her office claimed she was traveling overseas. Her social media disappeared. Every interview online vanished within hours. Someone was erasing her. And suddenly, I understood the fear in her eyes. She wasn't hiding from me. She was hiding from whoever stole her life. 2 weeks later, I received a phone call at 213 in the morning. No caller ID for several seconds, only breathing. Then, finally, Dad, my knees nearly gave out. Emily, soft crying, answered me. They know you found me. Where are you? I can't stay long. Emily, please, you need to listen carefully. What they told you about my death. That was never the lie. A chill crawled through my chest. What do you mean? Silence then. She whispered the words that destroyed me completely. You were the reason they chose me. My blood froze. What I found, the files. She sobbed. They were watching you because of Mom. Emily, I don't understand. She wasn't who you thought she was. The line suddenly crackled. Then another voice appeared, a man's voice, cold, calm. You should have left this buried. The call ended the next morning. I opened the old boxes in my attic that had belonged to my late wife. Inside them, beneath photo albums and winter clothes, I found documents I had never seen before, different names, different addresses, and one photograph that made my hands go numb. It showed my wife standing beside 3 children. I didn't recognize. On the back, written in faded ink, were 5 words: witness protection, relocation, 1991. That's when I realized the horrifying truth. Emily had never been randomly taken. Our family had been running from something long before she disappeared, and somehow it had finally found us.